Okay, so I am going to go ahead and get started, and Kathy will continue to. It looks like a few more people are coming in, which is great. We have some fellows with us already, and that's awesome too. We'll have an opportunity for some quick introductions here. I'm Heather Wilson. I'm your AIA CEO, and tonight's presentation for the Thursday Roundtable is Illuminating the Path to Fellowship for 2024. This is a program that we put on each year, or at least for the last couple of years. We've done this. It's new relatively, but we have done it consistently. We do first an open invitation to everyone who might be eligible for membership, and we'll get into that a little bit. And then we also go through some of the things that help illuminate, if you will, the path you might be on, whether it's immediately or a little bit into the future. If you're just kind of preparing and have questions, that's all good too. This is for anybody on any level of considering this first session. As we get further into the sessions, there'll be a little more refinement of or focus on the actual application itself. So everyone is welcome to continue through the entire session series. However, it will probably start to focus on the actual applications as we get toward the end. So with that, I do want to give an opportunity. I know I see Bill here, who's put FAIA in his name on the screen, which is great. Thank you. And I'll let you start maybe with a quick introduction since you are one of our fellows, and then anyone else who wants to, because I can't see everybody yet who's participating. Please jump in. All right.
Sure. Okay. I'm Bill Sider. I'm a emeritus architect in Eugene, and I retired 11 months ago, which is just amazing. I got my fellowship in 2013, and I have enjoyed the heck out of it. It's a wonderful honor, and I've helped encourage other people to go through the process. I've sponsored 2 other architects who got their fellowship, which has been also an honor, and just here to answer questions and support the cause.
Awesome. Next would be, let me just point out Rod. I don't see you on camera yet, but if you could say hey.
I am running a little behind. Hi, Rod Ashley, also a fellow. And presently, the College of Fellows is the only members group that did not go to a state model. So I'm one of the 2 region representatives to the College of Fellows right now. I too have worked with quite a few people applying for fellowship, both successfully and unsuccessfully, but typically after several times they've made it. And looking forward to helping anyone that we can help this year.
Thank you very much. And oh, there you are. Hey, hello, on camera. Fabulous. Hi. And I'm not as familiar with Thane. I don't know if you're a fellow or not.
No, yeah, Thane Eddington. I'm AIA and not a fellow, but interested in learning, and appreciate you environment and joining in and giving us a lay of the land. So thank you for your time.
Awesome. Jen, did you want to do a quick introduction?
Sure, thank you. So I'm Jen Wright, and I'm here locally in Portland. I head up Studio Rally Made, and I'm also your state representative to the National Board of Small Firm Exchange. So I'm interested in fellowship, and also I have heard that perhaps it's being kind of changed or modified to promote people that are younger in their careers. Not necessarily talking about myself, but but I am curious what has changed or what is changing to kind of promote that. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Awesome. And Stuart.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. I'm just coming in from the coast, so I'm still in my car. I'm Stuart Emmons. I applied in the last 2 years for fellowship. The first year, I went in as an object to do with community service. And then I switched objects last year to really focus on my modular housing work. And I got some really good comments back about a month ago that were, and thank you, Rod, for your great input. They were positive, constructive. I guess it's hard to talk about yourself, and I was a little disorganized. So I would like to go again this third year. I've got one more shot at it. And I appreciate you doing this meeting today.
Well, we're here to try and help that success rate. So I'm going to
Thanks.
jump right into it. And you guys, again, this is Thursday Roundtable, so it's relatively informal, although I do have a slideshow. Please just jump in with questions or raise your hand or something, or drop it in the chat.
Okay.
And I'll try and recognize. Awesome. So you guys,
We haven't introduced Jonathan yet.
oh, sorry, Jonathan, I missed you.
Oh, me?
Yes, you.
I'm describe myself as the last of a dying breed, having apprenticed to become an architect. And then I spent a hell of a lot of time involved with various nonprofits and other stuff. And that would, and I was also president of AIA Oregon and instituted the 2-year term.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, it made sense, and everybody else thought it made sense, but we had to, it was, well, and the bylaws needed redoing, so we redid the bylaws. I assume they've been redone again since we don't have
Regions.
local, regional, we don't
Yeah.
have the chapters anymore. We are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's
And it turns out that I'm surprisingly old. So.
well. I appreciate you spending your time here with us this evening for this. And please let us know how, if, like I said, you have any questions as we go through, just jump right in.
You bet.
All right. Really quickly, though, our community agreements, just as we jump into this conversation, we ask that we all respect the community and culture that is respectful, comfortable, open, curious, inclusive, and kind. So use your best language, be on your best behavior, because that's what we do. But I do want to jump right into it with what is the College of Fellows. Many of you already know. If you don't, the College of Fellows is comprised of all living fellows of the Institute. Its mission is threefold: to promote research and scholarly work, which the college accomplishes through the La Trobe Prize, which is a $100,000 biannual, which in this case means every 2 years, research grant and ongoing component grants. We are the recipient, for example, of one of the recent Fellows component grants that is sponsoring Mentor Madness, if you participated in that at the ODC conference in Bend that we were just recently at. Mentor young architects and emerging professionals. This is accomplished by embracing a two-way mentoring program with emerging professionals that is dedicated to lifelong learning and leadership development. So especially at the chapter level 2, we try and foster that cross-pollination between the emerging professionals and the fellows, like the Mentor Madness program that we just put on. It's really great. And then the third mission, which is to sustain the college through fellow advancement, obviously, and building the College of Fellows Fund. The College of Fellows Fund is a separately managed pool of dollars that does have management. That does have management within the Institute. It's not a separate organization, but it is a separate fund. What fellowship is not? It's not the end of your career, kind of to your point, Jen. It's supposed to be a signal that your activity in the AIA is actually still ongoing and you're looking for new ways to continue to participate. It's not just a medal or fancy parties or giving awards. It is not a pathway to leadership in the chapter or appointment to any specific chapter responsibilities, or is it an automatic reward for those appointments? And fellowship is not a license to gatekeep the profession or judge others. Certainly not. We want this to be an inclusive experience. Speaking of that, fellowship is inclusive, but it is competitive. Belonging to the College of Fellows is the height of exemplifying the mission of the college. And architects who do that are make a well-defined argument in the objects that we're going to talk about here. There are 6 of them, and they're, as clearly stated, as we were kind of going over at the beginning, a couple of the objects that Stuart mentioned that he's applied previously under. And only 3% of AIA members have earned this distinction. It's hard to do. It's hard to be a part of, but once you do it, it is a distinction that is, quite frankly, an elevated experience. And AIA Architect members who have been in good standing for at least 10 years are eligible. That's kind of the only membership eligibility requirement. So what we'll talk about a little more in depth today are the rest of those eligibility requirements. The 2024, so this past year that was just announced in February, demographics and some statistics that help you orient yourself in the idea of fellowship and competition, the objects of nomination and submission components. We'll discuss kind of how you determine where you are in the process and what we know so far. And I should say the 2025 application cycle, but it starts here in 2024. Really quickly, eligibility is, like I said, for anyone who's completed 10 cumulative years as an AIA member prior to the nomination deadline. Now, I've already received some questions about that this year that include, does my time as an associate member count? Unfortunately, no. Your time only as an AIA licensed architect member counts toward this. If I allowed my membership to lapse during that 10-year period at some point, but I renewed the following year, am I eligible? Well, if you altogether still have 10 whole years of membership, you are eligible. If somewhere in that 10-year term, you let like half a year slip away and you renewed within the period, but you're a couple of months beyond the date of application, you'll probably want to wait until the following year to be sure you are eligible. However, we can contact member records and find out how they view your eligibility. And can emeritus members apply for fellowship? One of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the answer to that is yes. Again, though, there'll be some things that we'll talk about a little bit further in that help you understand whether or not that's a good choice for you at this point. So the objects of nominations, the ways that you can be elevated, are 6, and very little has changed about the objects as how they've been described, really, or refined. In some ways, I think we separated. I believe there used to only be 5, and we kind of separated one out into 2. That's a little more clearly defined. So now we have 6. But again, very little has changed about the descriptions, other than to make room for new technologies and applications of innovations in practice. But now, while that part of it hasn't changed, the definition of what a significant contribution is, it's clearly subjective, and it becomes more and more nuanced with each jury, kind of to your point that you asked about, Jennifer. Recently, it seems the impact has been narrowed to mean not just what one has achieved over your career fully, whenever that ended, but the time span between achievements and the time span between your achievements and the time of your application. All of that does matter, I think, in a little more critical way. And if any of the other fellows want to chime in on that, and let me know if that's maybe a little skewed or if that's a misunderstanding, I'd appreciate it. But I feel like that's where things have been headed.
I think you're right on, Heather.
Thank you. I think that's, so kind of to Jennifer's point, it is emphasizing and hoping that we also include or introduce a younger crowd of our architect members to the concept of fellowship. And with that, then I'll tell you the 6 ways that you could be elevated. Object 1 is in design, urban design, or preservation. And the short description of that is to promote the aesthetic, scientific, and practical efficiency of the profession. The fuller description here is that it is granted to architects who have produced distinguished bodies of work. That's a super important part of that description through design, urban design, or preservation. It's more than a portfolio. It is, when they say distinguished, they mean awarded and published and discussed fully, presentations based on case studies, distinguished. This may be accomplished through individual or organizational effort. I think that's also a nuanced understanding of fellowship applications that's kind of changed, is that they have to, juries have had to understand necessarily that work isn't one person's hand anymore. There's a collaborative effort. I think that's recognized, but to the extent that you owned or what you owned about the process, you need to be able to describe that and have someone attest to that. Works submitted may be of any size for any client or of any scope and reflecting any type of architectural design service. Ooh, don't want to breeze past that. Object 2, practice management or practice technical achievement. This is to advance the science and art of planning and building by advancing the standards of practice. Standards being the operative word, codes or some other type of administration, firm management, project management, or specialty areas or technical expertise. This object has, in the past, and I don't know if that note's true anymore, I think I've made an update to this. It has had a high rate of return on application. I'm not sure about this last, I updated the stats, but I don't know that I updated this slide. We'll see when I get further in. Object 3, led the institute or a related organization. This is to coordinate the building industry and the profession of architecture. It's exemplified by architects who have actively, efficiently, cooperatively, and I would also say very vocally, if that's a good way to put it, led the institute or a related professional organization over a sustained period of time and have gained widespread recognition for the result of their work. I think that's where the vocally part comes in. Widespread recognition for the results of their work, not just that they were there for that period of time, but what happened while they were there. Object 4, public service, government, industry, or organization. This is to ensure the advancement of the living standards of people through their improved environment. And this is often granted to architects who've done public service, work in government, industry organizations, or through leadership in the development of civic improvements and needed government projects, including such elements as conservation, beautification, land use regulation, transportation, or the removal of blighted areas. I would also add historic preservation to that list, or who have been clearly raised the standards of professional performance in these areas by advancing the administration of professional affairs in those fields. That's a lot. That's a big sentence. Basically, though, you have made public service impact in a government, civic, or quasi-judicial setting. Object 5, alternative career, volunteer work with organizations not directly connected with the built environment or service to society. This is one of the ones that's been expanded a little bit. It used to just kind of say alternative career or service to society, and it's been expanded to include some more detail. But in general, to make the profession of architecture of ever increasing service to society at large. This object is granted to architects who have made contributions to the public through their alternative careers or that volunteer work, say with an outside organization that has produced affordable housing in a remote area. Achievements may also be of a kind that transcends the other categories for advancement, to serve society or humanity in a unique and important manner. And that has traditionally also had a pretty low rate of return on application because it's that's got to be a pretty big impact. It sounds like it might be a difficult thing to do outside of your own career, but it's a choice. And then object 6, education, research, and literature. This is to advance the science and art of planning and building by advancing the standards of architectural education and training. This object is granted fellowship for those who have made notable contributions to their work in education, research, or literature. This may be teaching, research, administration, writing, and should have a lasting impact, be widely recognized, broadly published, provide inspiration, and this is the first place I'm going to introduce this term, ripple effect, in the field and the profession. Research areas may include building codes and standards, specifications, new material applications, or inventions. I have that in there. It's a nice little pause. I just want to see if there are any questions, or this is a good stopping point to just check in and make sure everybody's not glazed over yet. Okay, good. Because we're going to get into some statistics. When we elevated our class last year, there were 218 applicants, 96 of whom who were elevated. That is a rate of about 44%. The rate of elevation by year of attempt, you'll see here, also declines, right? You get a lower number of people attempting, and you get actually relatively the same percentage of success. It does go down, but really only nominally. So in the first year, for example, we had 151 applications, 68 elevated. For first year applications, that is a success rate of 45% about. We had 52 second year applications and 22 were elevated. That is a success rate about 42%. And then the third year applicants, there were only 15, but 6 of those were elevated for a 40% success rate. So somewhere between 40 and 45% is the success rate. Elevation by object. I don't know why my chart did it backwards and it starts with 6 at the top, but again, of those total applications, we had 53 that were elevated in the number 1 object design. In practice, there were 96 applications, 37 elevated. Led the Institute, there were only 16 of those applications, and only 9 elevated in that category. Public service, government, industry, organization, and then alternative career education, you see those numbers there. I think then that what that bears out to mean is in this past class, led the Institute or a related organization actually had the highest success rate. And it looks like the lowest was for object 2 for practice management or practice technical advancement. So, I mean, I try and keep track of these things. I'm not entirely sure what it means year over year, other than we've got some industry trends going on in different key areas of practice. But also what it means to me, like when you see numbers kind of clustered generally this way, it's actually reassuring. Like everyone has a pretty steady success rate that hovers in this range. Not a great success rate necessarily if you're hoping for 100%, but you have almost a 50-50 chance. It does change a little bit for gender. We have 153 male applicants this year, 59 were elevated for a success rate of about 38%. 61% of our full fellowship class is male, but they only had a 38% success rate. Those who preferred not to disclose, that's what PNTD means. There were only 2 of those applications, but they were both elevated for 100% success rate. And then women, we only had 63 applicants. 35 of those were elevated for a over 50%, so 55% success rate, which is great. So what that actually means in takeaways, at least the ones I took away from this year's trends, more men submit than women, which is a steady trend, but women's success rate is actually higher than men's, which is worth noting. Race demographics are not included. They used to be, might be interesting to show. It often just reflects some of the things that we still know about the Institute, which is that unfortunately, people of color remain woefully underrepresented. Object 2 had the lowest success rate on application this year. Like I said, Object 1 had the highest rate of return, and then the success rate for all applications fell between 43 and 50%, which is not a bad range and remains pretty steady. Now, what has not remained steady is the historical rate of elevation for the College of Fellows. You'll see here in 2021, we recognized a pretty precipitous drop in the number of elevated fellows. It dropped even further in 2022 and then has seemed to level off here in the last couple of years. So what does that mean? Again, maybe it suggests that, as we've maybe noted, that we're trying to move the needle toward including and inviting younger professionals, earlier career professionals to submit, and also that it is not easy for those professionals to submit, both because they don't maybe sometimes feel they have the full career portfolio to do it yet, and because they don't have the time or the resources or the help, quite frankly, because this is often a team process. That's part of what this program exists for, to try and help do that and be sort of that supportive team and help your success rate if we can. So we'll go through some, I do want to stop again. This is also just a good place to see any questions yet. No. Awesome. All right. Submission components. And if you've hung out this far, you're interested in what the submission components must be. Here are the brass tacks. You need a strongly worded, well-written, specific to you sponsor letter. And one of the presentations we'll do in this series is how to be a good sponsor and or locate a good sponsor. Jennifer, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, it took me a second to find the hand. This was about what you were saying before this slide.
That's cool.
I was just curious if there were any, if there was data about small firms versus large firms in terms of the applications.
They do not give us those statistics, but that would be interesting to know.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I know it's disproportionate in terms of, as you said, time, money, everything that's involved for a smaller firm. So I was just curious about that. But
that is an excellent question. I will note that, actually. That's worth investigating. Thank you. Thank you.
There's
and
a question in the chat as well.
I did see that from Thane. Does the college share example applicants of successful candidates? They do. The website is currently under a little construction, but I do have a link that I'm going to share here before the end of the session that has that information on it. So you're right. And I'll point you to it here before the end.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So submission component. Strongly worded, well-written, specific sponsor letter. And as we were saying, we'll get to some of what that means to be a sponsor, or how to create that or find that right sponsor for you a little bit into the series. A strongly worded, well-written, specific reference letter set as well. There's, you guys tell me the number. I think is it 5 reference letters that you'll need?
I think it's 7.
7.
I'm sorry, 7 the first year that you apply, and then I think you can add 2 each extra year.
Correct.
And, yeah.
Okay.
But you don't have to replace the 7 unless you want to. So.
Correct. Okay, that's the catch. Okay. And then well organized and well designed, and I put that in giant bold letters there because you are still submitting your application to a jury of fellow architects after all, and y'all are all designers after all. So not only well organized, but well designed submission. That is not to exceed 40 pages, 8.5 by 11, and that can be oriented either way. But over time here, we have discovered, especially because of how we present in digital space and how most of the or all of the jury will see the presentation on their digital device in landscape format. I think that's preferred. Why did it do that? Hello. All right. 10-point font is the minimum. You will want a clear, concise summary statement that is not overreaching and is 35 words. The 35-word summary statement that is clear, concise, states exactly who you are and why this application matters, and sets up the argument for the entire rest of the application. 35 words. We'll get to that. And then high quality images and exhibits. Do not skimp on the photography or do low quality here. If you are not comfortable with your graphic skills, get help or ask for help, and we'll try and connect you with the help. And then consistency, leadership, results, and impact that are reflected in your submission. Your sponsors must be a fellow or AIA member in good standing. So just can't be associate members. They should know someone that knows you well and can speak knowledgeably, and they should be someone that knows you well and can speak knowledgeably, and this is, I think, more important, critically about your career. Not critically to the jury, but critically to you. Someone who will speak plainly and without too much filter, quite frankly, about what works and what doesn't work and what you need to highlight, what the best parts of your career have been, because it's a really good time to lean on their reflection of you. It's very difficult to toot your own horn. And that's exactly what this application process is all about. You're going to be challenged to speak exceptionally highly of yourself, which most of you are not, most of us, most people are not keyed into doing. So it's nice to have someone that will actually tell you, no, this is where you were. This is where you shine the brightest. Ideally, this is not someone from your own firm, maybe, but someone, like I said, who is really deeply familiar with you and has an outside view of your work. You may sponsor, if you are a sponsor, more than one candidate, but that sponsor needs to be able to speak specifically to each candidate's individual achievements. If you're getting someone that kind of is, and I don't know anyone who does this, but getting a high, well-known architect just because they can, their name seems important, or it seems like they could lend something to your portfolio, that's not going to help. It needs to be someone who can speak intimately and clearly to your individual achievements. They need to be deeply involved in your submission process and offer you advice and feedback. They will obviously write the sponsor letter. They will assist in crafting your submission, and they will be your liaison with your reference writers. So you want to pick someone who's also both willing to and capable of doing that job. When you get those things together and you're ready to start thinking about how you organize or think about both the opening statement and your application, what you want to center those things around are demonstrating your ripple effect. What impacts have you had beyond your day-to-day practice, or in your speaking engagements, publications, or in mentoring settings? What has your service to the profession been? Does it have a geographic impact outside of our own borders, nationwide, worldwide? And have you presented or provided a pathway of legacy through others who have either leaned on you for that mentoring or relied on you for that technical advancement or research that helped advance the institute? You need to demonstrate your broad reach of impact. That is what we mean by ripple effect. And this is where it becomes important to start assessing where you are in the process, because maybe you're early on and the advice is to start collecting. If you don't have a folder where you're pulling all of these things together, your speaking agreements, the publications and articles or places where people have published about your work or about you. If you're not gathering and putting those into all one place, maybe this is a good time to start. Maybe this would be a good time to begin. And if you have started gathering those things, it's maybe a good time to start sifting through the most important ones, or the ones you think rise to the top of demonstrating that ripple effect. So hopefully through this Path to Fellowship, Illuminating the Path to Fellowship program, we're going to help you with your submission over a series of these sessions, either just this year or maybe over a couple of years, that help you get toward that successful submission. We cannot guarantee a successful submission, obviously, but we can help review your application to be sure it has clear, concise presentation elements. It is eligible. You have the strong sponsor and specific references. You have your support and quite frankly, editing eyes for your summary statement, which sets up everything else, as we just said here, for the rest of your application. We're going to help you focus on the results and your achievements and tell it in a good story, and help you demonstrate that influence on the profession. Hopefully, by the end of this series, we do this as part of the Thursday Roundtable, but I would hope that by the last session, we could actually do these last 2 sessions in person with a digital element for those who aren't able to join us in person. It'll be of great benefit, though, to people who can be there, because we'll be able to really print and lay out your full submission, start rearranging and looking at the best ways to lay out or make last-minute edits. And I think that's one of the best ways to get critical feedback in a timely fashion for your application period. I'm going to go to the chat, though, because it looks like there's a question. What are the statistics for persons elevated to the College of Fellows that have spent all of their careers at firms with a focused regional geography? Another way to say this, is there a realistic pathway to FAIA if one's career has not had national or global exposure? I'm going to let the fellow speak to that.
So I'll start. I don't think it matters, what kind of firm you're with. And Jennifer asked the question whether it's a small firm or big firm. It might matter more in like the Object One for design and urban design, because maybe bigger firms, national firms have, mega projects with huge budgets and won lots of design awards. But I would imagine, since we all know that most architecture firms are small firms, that really shouldn't matter that you only belong to a large firm doing these kind of mega projects. If you were, you look at the kind of work and the awards that the small firm knowledge communities give out consistently, they're great little projects, and so that doesn't matter. But I think the bigger issue to me is as Heather's already mentioned, broad reach and that ripple effect. And so you may have won, lots of AI Oregon design awards, but what'd you do with it? Did you go on and win a regional award? Did you go on and win a national award in the design category? Did you speak to colleges or schools of architecture in, other states, or at a conference or things like that you kind of translate that experience and shared it with others, and that's where you created that ripple effect. But I don't think it has to do with sorry, but then getting back to your question about regional, they want to see that broad exposure, that broad change, not just what you've done in Oregon, but what you've done across the region or what you've done across the nation. So,
Bill, let me add to that, and I'm going to say real quickly, I mean, Object One is difficult if you have not had your work spread outside, as I was told, my backyard. So I left Object One, but it really comes down to the impact of your work and your volunteerism on a larger community. And by that, it does mean out of state, into the region, and ideally at least some nationally. Everything you do doesn't have to impact nationally, but if it's not there, it's getting more and more difficult.
Yeah, and I would add to, as I mentioned before, if it is distanced too far in time, your last greatest impact or the effect of that impact is distanced too great in time from your application period, that might also be a barrier. So, oh, goodness gracious, it does not want to keep up with me. All right. Where are you then in the process? Again, eligibility. Do you meet the minimum requirements? Will you meet them soon? That might give you a kind of idea of your time track. In the experience category, do you see an object area that we've just discussed that starts to bud your interest, or you think, yeah, that suits me? And if that's the case, have you started saving or putting your hands on? And that's sometimes important too. If you've changed firms, or if this was from if some of your activities from a volunteer position that you no longer hold, can you put your hands on that valuable supporting material for this claim in your 35-word statement? And then exposure, as we've been saying, what's the ripple effect? And I would also say not just how far out it goes, but what's the ripple effect specifically back to AIA? How is your volunteer resume incorporated into this conversation? And do you have any, when I say community, has there been any AIA community impact with your work? And then again, as we just mentioned, how far is that geographic reach? And how timely is that work? Another way to put that, as we've started to put the listing together, distinguished body of work includes published work and award recognitions, pieces written about you. It now more often includes, at least I've seen some more recent applications that include links to YouTube videos or interviews, important bits like that. Notable contributions also include your impact on other practices, other entire disciplines, lecturing or national leadership around that, chairing a knowledge community, being a part of a national conference organization, being a speaker at national conference. Widespread recognition of results includes those publications and awards and requests to speak and serve on juries, requests for you to be, again, a speaker at people's conferences or a keynote. Sometimes requests to testify at the legislature, if public service, for example, or your voting record, or bills that you have passed if you are in the legislative realm. Sharing of knowledge or expertise, speaking and leading seminars, again, publications in architectural journals and associated professional journals, national news media coverage. Again, more often than not, this will include now video links and things of that sort to interviews and clips about projects, stories that have been featured in the news about projects, and published peer recognition. Maybe some other bits that you could, or you might already have your hands on, would be the proof of your impact and results from AIA. If you have, like I said, your record of service, or you need us to check on your exact dates of membership, we can do that with the history with our AIA staff. Any local or regional offices that you've held for AIA or other related organizations, committee chairing, jury service, articles that you've authored, anything else that you've presented at conventions. And I just put more in here to ask the other fellows if you could think of other things that need to be included.
I think that's a pretty good starting point. Yeah.
Now, what I don't have is all of the data about the 2025 application cycle. I went to the website. It's not updated yet. I don't have it. Last year's entry fee was $450 though, which was actually, I think it was less than it had been in previous years. I'm not sure, but it's not cheap. It is an investment. We do understand that. It's not just an investment of your time and literally you putting your entire career out for display, but it is also actual monetarily expensive. And so we want you to be successful. That's part of why we've put this program in place. Second and third year applicants must also complete that application, whether you did it the first year or not. They want you to complete another application. June 27th is when last year's application cycle opened. And as far as the last fellows newsletter said, that is still the anticipated schedule for this year. So somewhere around some late June this year, the application cycle for 2025 will be announced and resources will become available. So we can share those dates with you once they are actually published. Right now, we are just guessing.
Then the application deadline is typically in early October, right?
Correct. It's
For the
typically
following year.
been the first Friday in October. So my guess, if they stick with that, is that it's October 5th, but don't know. Also, I'm not sure which of these fellows jury members might be alternating out, but there are always like people coming off and people coming into their terms, and I haven't seen the published jury of fellows for 2024 yet. As soon as that is published, though, I'll share it. Again, application deadline, don't know, but I think it's October 5th. And with that in mind, we have set our fellowship series with the following dates. June 20th would be how to find or be a good sponsor. Rod Ashley, again, brought this to our attention to try and focus on, and I think it's a great addition. So if you have someone in mind who is going to be your sponsor, that's the session you want to invite them to so that they can join us and be a part of that conversation. August 8th is successful opening statement and application organization. That opening statement is a doozy. And it seems a little late in the process, right? Because if we're working toward an October deadline, August is actually a little late to be coming up with your opening statement. So please note that you should have it by then. On August 8th, we're not asking you to be taking your first crack at it. We need to be actually refining it and making sure it is a successful opening statement. So between now and August 8th, if you're working actively toward this year's application, you want to be talking to your sponsor or writing and drafting that out. And your application organization, again, that would require you have kind of a first draft of your application. So at least the elements. You don't have to have every word laid in place, but a general layout. And because you know the number of pages, which projects you might be highlighting, or how you might lay out your text for your several pages of summary. Those are important things to start pulling together. On August 22nd, we'll discuss how we refine and align that application for submission. Again, this is where I hope we can meet in person, because I think it'll be a really valuable opportunity to literally lay applications out around the table, maybe with some drinks, because it goes better with wine. And really get critical about, no, this page needs to go here. This image isn't clear enough. This one is a better representation of your project. And I think that really works well. September 12th would be that final opportunity for that type of critical feedback if you missed August 22nd, and the final chance for pre-flight check-in. So ostensibly, if we have a crowd that's big enough, or if we have enough editing and back and forth to do, we could do 2 in-person opportunities there to do that editing and refining. On AIA.org, we have, again, a fellowship FAQ, online submission FAQ, sample submissions, and best examples. I will put the link in the chat window in just a moment. The general inquiries is at honors awards at AIA.org, and membership eligibility is still, if you have questions about that, directed to AIA membership history at AIA.org. I always put that slide in, but we're going to get to questions without this big thing in front of us. And then, like I said, I'm going to put that link in the chat. Although the link is also not perfect. It's a new link from our page that's in development still. So I don't even know how long this page will be active. I assume what'll happen is they'll actually update the regular fellows page, right? And it'll redirect properly.
I couldn't even find, I was just looking to find the fellowship requirements on the AIA.org website. It was very hard to find. It wasn't one of the choices like it used to be, and they've redone
Yeah.
so your link would be very helpful. Yeah.
It's really not even letting me here. I'm going to share my screen because it won't let me copy it properly to even share it with y'all. It's this live-AIA-web.pantheon site.io. And then Design Excellence Awards and Fellowship. So the regular extension is just Design Excellence Awards and Fellowship from the website. And what this part tells me is that this is the developer site. So this is part of one of our redeveloped pages they are currently working on, and it will reside at Design Excellence Awards and Fellowship once it's done under the menu. But for now, this is where it is, and this is all still last year's information though. I will say, where was the resources? Examples of applications do exist here. So I can, again,
Heather,
yeah.
this same page is actually, if you see my latest link, appears to be under Design Excellence, and it's
Is it
not
there
a
now?
Pantheon IO.
It's
That's
there
what I
now?
It's still got all the wrong, it still has all the wrong information, last year's
Ah.
information, but it isn't a development page.
Okay, well, let's see. Let me see if I can't get that to pull up properly then. All right. Thank you.
Also,
and-
I wanted to ask you, which you said August 8th was one of your meetings?
Yeah, are we supposed to be someplace else? at that
The
point?
case conference is the 6th and the 10th, I thought.
Okay, I might need to reschedule that one. Since I'm the case president-elect, I will probably
She
be in
probably needs to
Minneapolis.
be there.
And
So-
so we'll discuss changing that date shortly here. But it'll either be the Thursday before or the Thursday after. So thank you, Kathy, for that. That's why she's the director.
Keep her the
Um,
calendar.
She is the brains of this outfit. But I think I want to take the last few minutes here and just open it up for full discussion while I get that link going for you. Just show you, I'll show you where it is. Kathy just mentioned on the website here, you've got AIA.org. Let me close the menu. This is our newly designed site. It is pretty snazzy under Design Excellence and the College of
Oh,
Fellows.
there it is. Oh, okay, thank you.
You will find all of these snazzy bits. So, and the latest issue of the College of Fellows newsletter, by the way, is where I found that link that I just shared with y'all that had more data you just said there. So on announcements and updates there, that's where I found this other page, which looks like the other one you just said, but it has the rest of this nomination criteria, is all the rest of 2024 stuff. So right now, that's the secret.
Heather, the site you were on before, if you go back, I'm not convinced you can get to the information from that site.
From the AIA site.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
site
that-
that you have up right now does work. I was on it the other day, but I could not get there from the fellow site,
Right.
which I thought was
Yeah.
very odd.
No,
I
it's
think-
through Design Excellence, oddly enough.
Yeah.
You have to
So
go
I-
through the Design Excellence portion of the web to get
Oh,
to
there
it, and
it
it
is,
doesn't
yeah.
make sense to me.
Go figure.
Right.
AIA on their software.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna have to leave in a few minutes, but I wanted to suggest to Jonathan, who's the link, the hanger on here. Good for you, Jonathan. Is go
Thank
look
you.
at some of those examples, and I'm guessing, and maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but you'd mentioned that you were thinking you'd be maybe applying under alternate career service to society, working for your nonprofits or things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would
And-
suggest you go look at the examples
Mhm.
of the people that have done that in those many years there. Because it's a unique application, it's a unique object, I think. And it's also one of the best kept secrets of all of our members. We have no idea what you've done, outside of AIA, outside of AI Oregon, and you
Yeah.
could be a real star, and only you know that right now of this group, right? So but if you
Well,
look at the way people presented that, especially that 35-word statement, and listed all of their accomplishments, I think you'd really get a clear handle of where you would be in the process. And then one more thing that I always like to say it to new people who are considering this is, don't be cowed by the quality of those examples. They're the best of each year. And when I was going through the process, I did it and led the institute, and I read through those examples. I'd already been through starting it. I had an outline, I had a draft, and I read through those examples, and I went, "Oh, no way," and I stopped, And then one day I realized, a couple of weeks later, I said, I don't need to be the best of the best. My application doesn't need to be in that list next year. I just need to be one of the top 96 people that they pick. And so I just offer that as advice, having been there, to just say, yeah, and also they don't judge your application against others. They judge your application as a unique application.
Mhm.
And do you measure up to what they see as those initial criteria that Heather read at the beginning? So
Yeah.
take that grain of salt there and run with
Well, I may give you a call next week.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Are you terribly busy?
No. No, I have a voicemail, my assistant will call your assistant and
My person,
like-
yeah, our people will get together and they'll say,
yeah,
The
no,
retired
please feel
life.
free to give me a call. Yeah.
Jonathan, just real quickly,